We have Vitor Petrino versus Modestas Bukauskas, another kind of heavy-handed kind of fight here. I think it's going to be two in the 205 division. Vitor Petrino, obviously 9-0, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that submission actually over Marcin Prachino. Before that, had a pretty good win over Anton, although he did look like he struggled a little bit there, but he still got the dub. Something that really impressed me actually too about that dub, just because he kind of pulled through his cardio kind of issue, and then his last fight against Porcino came back and looked great. Um, he's going to be the younger fighter here. I mean, Modesta is obviously 15-5, 4-1 in his last five. He's coming in off of that kind of boring decision over Zach Pauga. Not the greatest fight. He did beat Tyson Pedro before that, so that was a pretty good victory. As far as their measurables, I mean, they're pretty much similar. I think Modestas has a 1 inch advantage in height and reach, so nothing too crazy there. Um, this is going to be, I think, a launching pad for Vitor if he actually wins this. I mean, he has great raw potential. I think he's obviously not the most technical guy, but he's a dangerous striker as far as just his power. If he lands that hook on you, or he lands any of these kind of looping shots on you, you're probably going to go out if he lands cleanly. He also has grappling potential as well. I mean, you see his takedowns against Anton, especially. He was also taken down during that fight, but he had a lot of will and kind of drive to win that fight. Absolute unit, powerhouse. I think in his last fight against Marcin, I think that he overcame a lot of those gassing issues. I mean, he lasted all 3 rounds, found the sub at the end, so he also looks for the finish, was something that's pretty impressive for me. Although he did display an impressive drive and will to win that decision over Anton, he did get taken down 5 times by Anton. So it's going to be interesting to see if, Modestas implements any kind of grappling game. I doubt it, though. I mean, I don't think that Modestas has like any takedowns, at least in the UFC. So they're both probably going to try to stay on the feet, but I think Vitor just will have a more of a grappling edge there. So Vitor for me is going to be the one who's going to dictate where this fight's going to go, right? Either he was going to want to stand it up or he's going to try to take it down. And just tell you about Vitor, I mean, per 15 minutes, right? He's taking down people 4.42 times. That's a lot. Takedown accuracy is 73%. Pretty good. So, and you also saw his sub game when he subbed Marcin in his last fight. So I think he definitely just has it all. A lot of raw potential to just do whatever in the cage. Modestas, I mean, low volume striker. He does look like he's improved in his second stint in the UFC. I think that if you do look at Modestas's record, right? I mean, he's came into the UFC fighting a lot of good 205ers at the time. I mean, came into the UFC, he did get the dub over Andreas Michailidis, a guy who I think Michelle, I mean, Alex Pereira also knocked out, so he got a good knockout right off the bat. But then he got, pretty much destroyed by Jimmy Crute. He lost a close fight against Mikhail Olajic, and then he just had a tough kind of injury kind of fight, but he still did lose against Khalil Roundtree, and then he took a couple years off, worked on his game, came back in his second stint in the UFC, and has gotten 2 decision dubs. So I think he looks better. He throws some pretty heavy leg kicks. He could trade shot for shots on his opponents. Mentally tough, and I think he's willing to throw down. He also has a large frame for 205 because he's going to be the larger. Technically, he's going to be the larger guy here against Vitor Petrino. However, I think that the UFC does like Vitor, especially in Brazil. I mean, I think they found him a good opponent in Modestas just because the only close fight that Vitor has had was against Anton, in my opinion, right? He still won that decision, but I think that the UFC found someone who really isn't going to try to grapple him too much. So he's going to be able to implement his either ground and pound or try to get a sub on his own. Might even KO Modestas. So the pick for me is Vitor. I think by KO, but I think decision could also be in play. Um, is he a parlayable piece? Looking at the odds, I mean, minus 193 right now, opened up at minus 221. I don't know if he's going to be parlayable just because I think Modestas could make this a close fight if it goes to decision, right? So I think if I were to play Vitor, I would look at something like inside the distance decision, no action when that prop comes out, or just play him as a prop because I don't know if that's a parlayable piece. I think Modestas can fight to a close decision. I mean, he's coming off two decision dubs, right? So pick here is Vitor Petrino, but I'm probably gonna stay away from him as a parlay piece and potentially play him as a prop, maybe even live bet. But I think that yeah, pick here is Vitor. What do you think about this fight, Gerard?
I like Vitor a lot here. And when I look at these two fighters, Modestas, I by each fight I'm getting more and more less impressed by
Mm-hmm.
Bukauskas and more impressed by Petrino. And Petrino, I think he's like a physical specimen. This guy, he's a beast in grappling, and I think his stand-up has improved. I think he's more patient. He's not just throwing it, going in there and throwing like we saw against Anton. Um, and Bukauskas, it looks like Bukauskas looks more and more hittable against not that great opponents. So yeah, yeah, these are like some underwhelming wins for Bukauskas, and this is in Brazil. I don't know if he can get a decision there. I think there's a chance that Petrino can just throw him around,
Mm-hmm.
ragdoll him a bit in Brazil. And this might be like a coming out party for Vitor here against Modestas, who's been on a win streak, but not that all impressive personally. So I'm pretty medium to high confidence on Petrino here. And I'm probably going to play him in a parlay. But yeah, just not impressed by Bukauskas as of late. He's got the kickboxing, but Petrino's looking much more patient in terms of striking. And Bukauskas just looks more hittable and hit by the day. So yeah, I'm leaning Petrino here, medium to high confidence.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, I'm probably not as confident as you are, but maybe when the weigh-ins come and Vitor is going to look, absolutely jacked, maybe I'll change my mind just because yeah, I think, Petrino is an absolute powerhouse. We're going to see that when he hits the scales.